How to stay calm even around impossible people. Have you ever met someone whose very presence made your heartbeat quicken and your chest tighten? Someone with whom every conversation feels like an emotional obstacle course, where even a harmless remark or a passing glance feels like a tiny needle piercing your patience. If you have, you're far from alone. I've lived long enough to discover that such people appear in every life path, regardless of where you work, who your family is, or what circles you move in. Sometimes it's a colleague who constantly questions your decisions. Sometimes it's a neighbor who seems to exist solely to test your limits. And sometimes, painfully, it's someone close, someone you love, someone whose words can cut deeper because of the bond you share. For many years, I lived with this constant tension, believing that the only way to protect myself was to fight, to argue, to prove, to insist that I was right. Each conflict felt like a small battle I had no choice but to win. Yet every victory left me exhausted, uneasy, and strangely hollow. Have you ever wondered why certain people irritate you to the core, while others, even in similar situations, calm you down? Why one voice soothes you and another instantly tightens your jaw? I spent years searching for answers. I read psychology books, listened to coaches, tried meditation, experimented with breathing techniques. But the real solution turned out to be far more ancient, far simpler, and far more powerful than anything I had encountered. It came from the wisdom passed down in my family, from the traditions of my people, from old stories where patience was not seen as weakness, but as mastery, where self-control was not repression but strength, where understanding human nature was the foundation of emotional resilience. These teachings helped generations survive storms far greater than unpleasant conversations or difficult personalities. Imagine yourself standing in a long line. The person in front of you seems determined to take as much time as humanly possible, explaining their situation in excruciating detail, as if the world itself must revolve around them. Or imagine a coworker who comments on your every move, turning even neutral statements into personal stabs. You feel your inner balance slipping, your thoughts heating, your hands tightening. And then comes that familiar urge, to snap, to correct, to defend your dignity. In my younger years, I always snapped. I raised my voice, I argued. I came home tense and drained, feeling as if pieces of my inner peace had been chipped away by every unpleasant interaction. But then one day, I had a realization so simple yet so transformative. My emotional energy belongs to me. No one else has the authority to control how I spend it unless I grant them that power. That was the moment everything shifted. The world wasn't suddenly kinder. People didn't magically become more considerate. But my responses, my choices became different, and that changed everything. Here's a truth most people overlook. We often believe that peace is something that depends on circumstances, that we'll feel calm when others behave better, when life becomes more convenient, when the environment becomes less stressful. But the older I grew, the clearer it became. Peace does not come from outside. Peace begins inside. There is an old saying my grandparents repeated often: if you cannot change the person before you, change the way you stand before them. It took me years to understand the depth of that, and yet, that single idea became the foundation of my emotional freedom. And here's something worth staying for, something that changed not just the way I saw people, but the way I lived my life. There is one method, one inner habit, one deeply rooted practice that allows you to keep your balance even around the most stubborn, most irritating, most unreasonable people. When I started applying it, my life shifted almost instantly. I stopped wasting energy on other people's anger. I stopped being a captive of someone else's mood. I stopped feeling like the world could steal my peace whenever it wanted. I became free. What is this method? How does it work in real life, in offices, in families, in crowded places, in stressful homes, in environments where irritation grows like weeds? I will get to that soon. But before I share the practical steps, let me invite you into a deeper reflection. Every irritation is a message. Every conflict is a lesson. Every burst of anger is a sign, not a punishment. It tells us where our boundaries are, where our wounds lie, where our growth is waiting. And until we recognize that we always have a choice, even when it feels like emotions are taking over, we remain prisoners of impulses we mistake for truth. And here's another piece of wisdom that prepared me for everything that came later. People who behave in the most unbearable ways are often the ones who suffer the most. Their hostility is a mask for fear. Their negativity is a shield for insecurity. Their harshness is often a cry disguised as anger. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it explains why compassion and calmness are more powerful than confrontation. Stay with me, because what comes next is not just theory, it's real stories, real experiences, real tools that helped me transform the way I deal with stress, criticism, conflict, and tension. Very soon, you'll learn the practical steps you can use to keep your inner world steady, even when the outer world feels chaotic. And most importantly, you'll discover that peace is not a personality trait. It's a trainable skill, a muscle, and once it becomes part of you, life starts to shift in ways you never imagined. When I was younger, I believed strength meant having the sharpest words, the fastest comebacks, the most unshakable arguments. I thought that to protect myself, I needed to win, to overpower, outsmart, outtalk anyone who challenged me. And yes, there were moments when I won those verbal duels, moments when my logic was flawless, or my wit landed perfectly. But do you know what I felt afterward? Not pride, not satisfaction, just emptiness. My grandfather used to tell me, "You can win an argument and still lose your soul." At the time, I brushed it off as poetic exaggeration. Years later, I understood exactly what he meant. True strength is not measured by how loudly you speak, but by how calmly you stand. Not by how many arguments you win, but by how few you need. There was one moment, one scene from my life, that changed everything. It happened over 20 years ago, back when I worked in a small, humble shop. The owner was an elderly Jewish man named Itzhak. He was quiet, slow in his movements, and incredibly attentive. But what made him unforgettable was this: no one could make him angry, not once, not ever. Customers shouted at him, suppliers disrespected him, someone broke something, someone else demanded something impossible, and Itzhak, without fail, simply smiled, sometimes warmly, sometimes with a hint of humor, sometimes with what looked like deep, grounded peace. One day, after watching yet another frustrated customer leave the store while Itzhak remained as serene as a still lake, I couldn't contain it anymore. I asked him, "How do you do it? How can you stay calm when people behave like this?" He looked at me gently, almost pitying my confusion. Then he said a sentence that has followed me all my life. "My boy, you don't have to drink the poison just because someone hands you the cup." Those words hit me harder than any argument I had ever won. We often accept other people's anger, as if we're obligated to swallow it. Someone throws bitterness in our direction, and we catch it. Someone hands us frustration, and we hold it close. Someone offers us the poison of their mood, and we drink it without question. But Itzhak refused, and that refusal was his strength. After that day, I began observing myself more honestly. I realized that what hurt me wasn't what others said. It was my decision to take those words personally. Their anger wasn't mine. Their frustration wasn't mine. Their chaos wasn't mine unless I invited it inside, and once I understood that, something remarkable happened. I discovered the first universal rule of preserving inner peace. Rule 1. Never react immediately. Pause first, respond later. A moment of silence saves more energy than 100 clever replies. In that silence, you reclaim your power. There is a line in the Talmud that says, "One who restrains himself in the moment of anger is forgiven for many mistakes." I had heard that line countless times growing up, but only after years of experience did I begin to understand its depth. I remember a business meeting where a man, high-strung, impatient, quick-tempered, began raising his voice at me. He accused me of incompetence, questioned my decisions, and kept cutting me off whenever I tried to explain. The old me would have fought back instantly, matching intensity with intensity. But that day, I simply looked at him and stayed quiet. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, a full minute. His voice eventually softened, his breathing slowed. And after the meeting, to everyone's surprise, especially mine, he approached me and said, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have spoken to you like that." And that's when I learned one of life's most surprising truths. Silence can defeat what shouting cannot. But, and this is important, silence only works if it comes from inner steadiness, not suppressed rage. There is a difference between silent resentment and silent wisdom. That leads to the second rule. Rule 2. Stay calm not because you don't care, but because you choose peace over chaos. When you react with anger, you give your power away. When you remain centered, you stay in control of your inner world. If someone manages to shake your balance, it means you've handed them the keys to your emotional home. Why would you let a stranger move your furniture? Why let someone else rearrange your peace? My grandfather once told me, When a dog barks, you don't need to bark back. It was his humorous way of saying that reacting to provocation only lowers you to the level of the provocateur. But what about real-life situations? Workplace pressures, difficult family members, people who complain endlessly, conflict-heavy spaces you can't escape. How do you hold on to your calm in environments like these? Let's go through them one by one. Situation 1. Conflict at work. Imagine walking into the office. Before you even take off your coat, a colleague hits you with, "Again? You didn't do this the right way." No greeting, no courtesy, just criticism. Your first instinct is to defend yourself, to explain how hard you worked, to raise your tone just a little. But this is where the training begins. Step 1. Take a breath, literally. Give your mind a few seconds to catch up to your emotions. I call this the sacred pause. Step 2. Separate the person from the moment. Tell yourself, this is their stress speaking, not their truth. Step 3. Respond with clarity, not hostility. Say something like, "I hear that you're not satisfied. Let's calmly go through what needs adjustment." You'd be surprised how often such a response disarms conflict. Most people expect aggression in return. When you don't deliver it, they have no fuel to continue the fire. Over time, colleagues grow to trust and even depend on the calm you bring. They feel safer around you, and people naturally gravitate toward those who make them feel safe. Situation 2. Irritating relatives. Let's talk about family, the ultimate test of emotional endurance. Strangers can annoy you, but relatives have a unique ability to find the emotional bruises you didn't even know you had. Imagine an aunt like Sarah. She calls every week saying, "You look tired. Are you eating? Why don't you find a more stable job? I'm telling you, this isn't the way to live." In the past, her words would trigger defensiveness or irritation. But eventually I understood something fundamental. Most people don't criticize because they want to hurt you. They criticize because they want to be heard. They want to feel relevant, useful, important. Now I simply say, "Aunt Sarah, thank you for caring. It means a lot." That's it. No arguments, no explanations, no emotional battles. And without resistance, her energy softens. She feels acknowledged instead of challenged, and peace returns. Situation 3. Online hostility. The internet is an emotional battlefield. The safest place for a person's courage is the comment section. Somebody writes under your video, "You're talking nonsense." Another adds, "Why would anyone listen to you?" The old me would have typed a paragraph explaining why they were wrong. Now, I don't engage. Because here's the truth. Your silence is not submission, it's strategy. A wise man once said, "If someone throws mud at you, don't pick it up to throw it back. They will become dirty on their own." I have tested this wisdom. It works. The world becomes quieter the moment you stop feeding noise. Situation 4. Everyday frustrations. Life's smallest moments often test us the hardest. A delayed bus, a rude cashier, someone cutting in line. These moments feel insignificant, yet they accumulate into emotional weight. I remember once being stuck in traffic, minutes away from an important meeting. My frustration grew, my thoughts raced, and then I noticed something. A driver ahead of me stepped out to help a mother lift a stroller over the curb. My irritation dissolved instantly. At that moment, I understood something profound. A delay is not always an obstacle. Sometimes it's protection or purpose we can't yet see. Since then, whenever life slows me down, I ask myself, maybe this is for my good. And just like that, the tension softens. Daily practices to strengthen calmness. To make inner peace a natural part of your life, you must train it consciously. Here are practices that have transformed my days. Morning grounding. Before touching your phone, take 3 deep breaths and tell yourself, "Today I choose peace." Midday pause. Whenever irritation rises, silently say, "Hold on." 10 seconds of silence can save a relationship. Evening reflection. Recall 3 moments where you stayed calm. Acknowledge your progress. And if you failed, don't punish yourself. Growth isn't linear. Say, "Tomorrow I'll try again," because awareness itself is progress. Why does all of this actually work? Why does calmness sometimes transform situations that force, pressure, or arguments never could? The answer is simpler and deeper than most people realize. Because we are not machines. We are emotional beings. We respond to tone, energy, atmosphere. We mirror what stands before us. Anger breeds anger. Fear triggers fear. Think of anger as a fire. If you throw more fire at it, the flames grow. But if you bring stillness, oxygen disappears and the flames weaken. Calmness is that stillness. It doesn't fight the fire, it starves it. I've met people with wealth, influence, authority, people who commanded rooms and frightened subordinates. But many of them lacked the most important leadership quality of all, the ability to remain composed when things fell apart. And I've met others who were quiet, humble, unnoticed by the world, but they had a grounded presence that made everyone around them feel safe. These are the people whose homes feel warm, whose conversations feel healing, whose presence feels like shelter. Guess which of the two is truly powerful? True power is inner peace. There is a line in Jewish wisdom that says, "One who masters his own spirit is greater than one who conquers a city." I used to read this and think it was metaphorical. Then life taught me its truth. You can conquer cities, build companies, win arguments, dominate conversations, and still be a prisoner of your own emotions. But the moment you learn to guide your reactions, your temperament, your inner state, you gain a freedom no one can take away. And the most beautiful part? When you begin to change inside, the world around you starts changing too. How life transforms when calmness becomes your default. Before I embraced this path, a single unpleasant encounter could ruin my whole day. One argument could drain my energy for hours. One rude comment could twist my mood. Now, 5 minutes, sometimes even less. Not because I don't feel emotions. I do. I simply don't let them sit behind the steering wheel anymore. Your relationships begin to shift as well. People who used to argue with you stop finding satisfaction in conflict. Family conversations become warmer. Even tense environments, like offices, take on a softer tone when you're in the room. Calmness is contagious. Children sense it instantly. Partners feel it. Friends notice it. Even strangers recognize it. I remember one moment that made this especially clear. My grandson, who was only 7 at the time, once asked me, "Grandpa, why don't you get angry when Mommy yells?" I laughed and told him, "If I get angry too, who will calm us down?" He thought for a moment and replied, "Then I won't get angry either." That single exchange was a revelation. Calmness doesn't just protect you, it shapes the world around you. It becomes a light others learn to follow. Why calmness is more important today than ever. We live in an era of noise, digital noise, emotional noise, informational noise. Every day we are bombarded with opinions, demands, pressures, alerts, notifications, expectations. The world screams for our attention, and the louder it gets, the quieter our inner voice becomes. People rush, compete, compare, argue, react before thinking. Everyone wants to be right. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be first. But in all this noise, wisdom is lost. Calmness isn't luxury anymore, it's survival. It's the anchor that keeps your mind from drifting into chaos. It's the filter that helps you choose what truly matters. It's the lighthouse that guides you when everything feels overwhelming. When you remain calm, you think clearer, you make wiser decisions, you avoid unnecessary conflicts, you see opportunities others miss, you become someone people trust. Calmness sharpens your intuition, it deepens your presence, it heightens your awareness. The mistakes people make on this journey. Many try to practice calmness for a day or two and then say, "It doesn't work." But calmness isn't a weekend project, it's a lifelong discipline. And here's what most people misunderstand. Calmness does not mean suppressing emotions. Calmness does not mean avoiding conflict. Calmness does not mean being passive. Calmness does not mean letting people mistreat you. Calmness is strength with softness. Calmness is clarity without aggression. Calmness is confidence without noise, and it grows gradually. You will fail sometimes. I still do. You will snap occasionally. I still do. You will lose patience on tough days. I still do. But each time you recognize it, you get closer to mastery. There is a saying I love, "If you stumble, stumble forward." Meaning, every mistake still moves you toward growth if you learn from it. A day guided by ancient wisdom. A rabbi once said, "The world around you begins with the world within you." Live one day, just one, keeping this idea in your heart. When someone is rude, try to see the pain behind their tone. When someone complains, hear the fear hiding beneath their words. When someone provokes you, ask yourself whether the reaction is truly worth your peace. You'll be amazed at how different your day feels. Maybe after a week you'll notice something extraordinary. The world didn't change, but the number of irritating moments decreased. Not because life became easier, but because you became calmer. How to make inner peace your natural state. To make calmness as natural as breathing, you must feed it. Here are practices that nourish it deeply. Start your day with gratitude, even for small things. Gratitude and irritation cannot live in the same moment. Reduce noise, limit your news intake, avoid unnecessary scrolling. The world's problems are not all yours to carry. Practice gentle boundaries. Calmness is not surrender, it's self-respect. Sometimes the kindest word is a firm no. Pray or meditate. Whatever your tradition, connect with something larger than yourself. A soul filled with light cannot be easily disturbed. Remember, everything passes, good and bad, joy and sorrow, challenge and comfort. And knowing this makes everything easier. Your calmness is your contribution to the world. People rarely talk about this, but inner peace isn't only a personal achievement, it's an act of service. Every time you choose patience instead of anger, every time you forgive instead of holding a grudge, every time you respond with kindness instead of reacting with bitterness, you make the world slightly better. You may not see the ripple immediately, but it's there. Someone feels your calmness and softens. That person passes it on, and slowly, silently, the world heals. We cannot stop wars, hatred, division, or noise overnight. But we can be a source of peace in our corner of the world, and that is how peace spreads. If you've read this far, it means the seed of calmness already lives within you. You're not looking for peace, you're remembering it. Your inner peace is your treasure. Guard it, protect it. Value it more than the urge to be right, more than the desire to react, more than the impulse to defend your ego. Because when calmness becomes your home, no storm can shake you. Let's take everything we've explored and go even deeper, into the realm where calmness stops being a practice and becomes a way of living. A way of seeing the world, a way of understanding people, a way of understanding yourself. Because real peace isn't built only in moments of conflict. Real peace is built in the quiet moments between them. And the more you cultivate this inner foundation, the less the outside world will be able to shake you. The world won't slow down, but you can. With each passing year, the world moves faster. Expectations rise, deadlines shorten, people demand more attention, more answers, more emotional labor. The more chaotic the world becomes, the more valuable inner calmness grows. But here's the secret that most people overlook. You don't need to control the world to feel at peace. You only need to control the world within you. There is a teaching in Jewish tradition that says, a noisy mind makes small problems seem enormous. A calm mind makes enormous problems seem small. How many times have you noticed this to be true? On the days when your head is a storm, even a small inconvenience feels like a catastrophe. But on the days when you're centered, grounded, rested, someone could shout at you, traffic could stop, plans could fall apart, and you would simply breathe and move on. The situation is the same, but you are different. That's the essence of inner mastery, the illusion of winning in conflict. For so many years I believed that if I wanted respect, I needed to be the strongest voice, the sharpest mind, the one with the last word. But winning arguments never brought peace. Winning arguments brought isolation, bitterness, tension, distance, and worst of all, it made me dependent on conflict, because I needed someone to oppose me in order to feel strong. True strength doesn't need an opponent. True strength is self-contained. I once heard a rabbi say, a sword is strong until it meets a stronger sword, but a mountain is strong no matter what it faces. Be a mountain, not a sword. Let's speak honestly. There are certain people who seem designed to test your patience. The coworker who interrupts every sentence, the relative who always criticizes, the stranger who provokes you intentionally, the friend who never listens but always complains, the person whose energy feels like sandpaper on your soul. We all have these people in our lives. And here's the truth. They are not here to punish you. They are here to reveal you. Revealing what? Your boundaries, your insecurities, your emotional triggers, your unhealed parts, your patience or lack of it, your ability to stay centered. Difficult people are mirrors. They show you where your work lies. And once you see them this way, something interesting happens. You stop taking their behavior personally. Because their behavior is not about you, it's about them, their pain, their fear, their upbringing, their worldview. Seeing this doesn't mean you excuse toxic behavior, but it does mean you stop letting it steal your peace. The emotional distance that saves you. There is a technique I teach often, and it has changed lives. It's simple but profoundly powerful. The technique is internal distance. When someone tries to provoke you, pause, and imagine stepping back inside your mind, not physically, emotionally. This mental step creates space between their behavior and your reaction. their words and your emotions, their mood and your inner world. In that space, you reassume control. In that space, you decide who you want to be. In that space, you reclaim your dignity. This internal distance saves relationships, jobs, peace, and health. Because when you stop absorbing everything around you, you stop bleeding emotionally every day. The emotional budget theory. Imagine your emotional energy as money. You have a daily budget. Every irritation costs, every argument costs, every unnecessary reaction costs, every conflict costs, every overthinking session costs. Some people spend half their emotional budget before lunch. Calm people spend carefully, wisely, intentionally. They don't give emotional energy to random comments, rude strangers, online negativity, loud people, petty gossip, chaotic personalities. They invest their energy only where it matters. And because of this, they always have emotional savings, patience, clarity, presence, strength. This is why calm people seem unshakable. It's not magic, it's budgeting. The spiritual side of staying calm. In Jewish thought, calmness isn't merely psychological, it's spiritual. There is an idea called menuchat hanefesh, rest of the soul. It means tranquility that comes from trust, acceptance that comes from wisdom, steadiness that comes from faith, clarity that comes from humility. When you trust that life is unfolding as it should, you stop resisting everything. When you trust that you can handle what comes, fear loosens its grip. When you trust that not every battle is yours, tension melts. A calm soul is a soul that feels safe. And when your soul feels safe, your reactions soften naturally. Calmness doesn't make you weak. Some people think staying calm makes you passive or naive. On the contrary, calm people make better decisions, speak with more authority, think with more clarity, earn deeper respect, avoid unnecessary mistakes, keep their dignity, maintain long-term relationships, navigate crises with steadiness. The ones who shout the loudest are often the most insecure. The ones who remain calm are the ones who truly lead. There is a saying, anyone can shout, only the wise know how to remain silent. A powerful visualization technique. If you take only one tool from this entire chapter, let it be this. Visualize yourself as a deep ocean. The surface may have waves, wind, storms, noise, but the deeper you go, the calmer it becomes. Most people live on the surface of their emotions. Every wave shakes them. Calm people live deeper. They are not controlled by surface-level impulses. The next time someone irritates you, imagine sinking deeper into yourself, into that quiet place where nothing external can reach. Stay there for 3 seconds, then respond. Your entire life will change. You are not responsible for other people's emotions. This is one of the most liberating truths you'll ever realize. You are responsible for your words, not for how others choose to feel about them. You are responsible for your actions, not for someone else's interpretation. You are responsible for your peace, not for someone else's chaos. When you internalize this, you stop walking on eggshells. You stop trying to please everyone. You stop blaming yourself for someone else's storm. You step out of emotional codependency and into emotional freedom. Why calmness changes your destiny? Because every big mistake in life comes from one of two states: impatience or emotional reactivity. Calm people don't rush into bad relationships. Calm people don't explode and ruin opportunities. Calm people don't say things they can't take back. Calm people don't get pulled into other people's drama. Calm people don't live in regret. They make decisions from clarity, not from chaos. And decisions made from clarity shape a beautiful life. The calmer you become, the more life opens for you. There comes a moment on every inner journey when understanding is no longer enough. You can listen to wisdom, repeat teachings, nod at beautiful ideas, and still find yourself losing your temper the very next morning. That is because true change begins only when calmness stops being a concept and becomes a living practice woven into the fabric of your days. When I finally realized this, everything about the way I moved through life began to shift. It didn't happen in a dramatic revelation or a single life-changing event. It happened quietly, almost invisibly, in the way I approached each moment. Calmness, I learned, is not built in grand gestures but in the small, ordinary choices that accumulate over time. One of the most transformative choices is learning to pause before reacting. It sounds simple, almost too simple. Yet that brief moment of stillness became a turning point for me. Whenever someone spoke sharply, whenever life surprised me with something unpleasant, whenever I felt the familiar rise of irritation, I chose pause over reaction. That pause became a doorway, one that led me away from impulsive responses and into a deeper kind of awareness. In that tiny space between stimulus and response, I rediscovered my freedom. Another profound shift came when I stopped interpreting other people's behavior as personal. Most of the pain we feel in interactions doesn't come from what others do. It comes from what we believe their actions mean about us. But once you understand that people act from their own fears, their own insecurities, their own histories, something softens inside you. You no longer carry the weight of their moods. You begin to see their reactions as reflections of their inner world, not judgments of your worth. There was a day I received a message filled with bitterness from someone I barely knew. In the past, I would have spent hours thinking about it, replaying it, justifying myself, feeling wounded. But that day, something inside me remained still. I saw the pain behind their words, not the attack, and in that moment, I felt a calmness so steady that it almost surprised me. I realized then that true peace is not the absence of conflict, but the refusal to let conflict enter your heart. As the years passed, I also understood that calmness is not the same every day. Some days it comes naturally, as if the soul itself is made of quiet light. Other days it feels like a struggle, a discipline you must return to again and again, and that is normal. Calmness, like strength, grows through repetition. Each time you choose peace over reaction, the muscle becomes stronger. Each time you let go instead of clinging, your spirit becomes lighter. My grandfather used to say that a person who can control his inner world lives a life of clarity. I never fully understood what he meant until I experienced it myself. When you're calm, you see things as they truly are rather than through the fog of emotion. You notice opportunities you once overlooked. You hear the meaning beneath people's words. You act with intention instead of impulse. A calm mind is not empty. It is perceptive, aware, awake. Calmness also deepens your relationships in ways you might not expect. Conversations become gentler. Tensions dissolve faster. People feel safer with you. They sense your steadiness, your lack of judgment, your ability to listen without reacting, and in return they begin to soften as well. I have seen arguments dissolve simply because I refused to fuel them. I have seen people who once approached me with hostility become kinder. Peace, it seems, invites peace. There is something almost miraculous in how calmness alters the space around you. A room that once felt heavy becomes lighter. A tense conversation becomes manageable. A difficult person becomes less threatening. This happens not because the external world changed, but because your presence changed. You carry an inner quiet that radiates outward. Yet perhaps the most valuable gift calmness has given me is the ability to meet myself with compassion. For years I held myself to impossible standards, criticizing every mistake, replaying every misstep. The more I practiced calmness with others, the more I learned to practice it with myself. I understood that growth is not measured by perfection, but by awareness. There were days I failed, days I reacted harshly, days I lost my center. But instead of drowning in regret, I reminded myself that progress is made in steps, not leaps. The important thing is returning to the path, again and again. With time, inner peace became my default rather than a fleeting state. Not permanent or flawless, but steady, reliable. A place I could return to whenever the world demanded too much. And as my calmness grew, so did my gratitude for it. Life will always bring challenges, but now I meet them differently. Not with resistance or fear, but with a quiet confidence that whatever comes, I have the strength to remain myself. This is the heart of everything I've learned. Calmness is not a retreat from life. It is the foundation that allows you to live fully. It gives you clarity in confusion, patience in difficulty, softness in conflict, dignity in chaos, and strength in vulnerability. It becomes a guide, a friend, a steady light. As this journey reaches its final stretch, I want to bring together everything that has been unfolding like threads in a tapestry. Because calmness is not one idea or one technique. It is a way of inhabiting your life. It is a relationship with yourself, a conversation with the world, a quiet agreement you make with your own soul. And the longer you walk this path, the more you realize something essential. Peace is not something you chase. It is something you uncover. It exists within you long before you learn how to access it. I realized this during a moment so ordinary that I almost missed its significance. I was sitting alone one evening, after a long day full of minor frustrations. There had been misunderstandings, delays, small irritations, the usual noise of life. But as I sat in silence, the world around me slowed. I could hear my own breath, steady and unforced. I could feel the weight of the day, but it didn't crush me. And then it occurred to me, peace isn't the absence of problems, it's the presence of perspective. The more I reflected on this truth, the more I understood that the calmest people are not the ones who avoid storms. They are the ones who learn not to fear them. They trust their inner anchor. They trust their own resilience. They know that every emotion, every conflict, every hardship passes through like weather. Nothing stays forever. Nothing defines you unless you allow it. There is a piece of ancient wisdom that says, a person is where their thoughts take them. For many years, my thoughts took me into battles I didn't need to fight. They took me into worries that never became reality. They took me into arguments long after conversations ended. They took me into shadows that existed only in my imagination. Today my thoughts take me somewhere else. They take me into clarity, into gratitude, into softness, into the awareness that every moment offers a choice to return to calmness or to drift away from it. I often think of a teaching my grandfather shared with me, one I did not understand until I had lived long enough to feel its truth in my bones. He said, when a person carries light, even darkness becomes a path. At the time, I dismissed it as metaphorical poetry. Now I know he was describing something real. When your inner world is calm, even difficult moments guide you rather than break you. Even challenges illuminate something within you, your patience, your wisdom, your strength. Calmness, I've learned, is not passive acceptance. It is active presence. It is meeting life as it is, without running, without hiding, without tightening your fists. It is the courage to remain open-hearted even when the world tests you. It is the maturity to choose your response instead of surrendering to impulse. There was a day not long ago when someone spoke to me with sharpness, almost hostility. In the past, I would have felt instantly defensive. I would have matched their tone, raised my voice, or carried the sting with me for hours. But that day I felt something new, something steady inside me. I heard their words, recognized the pain behind them, and did not absorb it. I responded not with armor, but with groundedness, and later, when the moment had passed, I felt no heaviness, no lingering tension. My peace stayed intact. This to me is the quiet miracle of inner calmness. It protects you without hardening you. It strengthens you without turning you cold. It allows you to stay soft in a world that often rewards harshness. And perhaps the most beautiful truth of all is this: the calmer you become, the more life reveals itself. You notice details you once overlooked, the warmth in someone's eyes, the kindness behind a gesture, the stillness in the air before morning, the subtle lessons hidden in each interaction. You begin to live not just quickly, but deeply, not just reactively, but consciously. You also begin to see people more clearly. Their anger stops frightening you. Their judgment stops defining you. Their noise stops distracting you. You begin to meet others with understanding rather than tension, and something remarkable happens. Many of them change in your presence. Not because you force them, but because calmness has a way of awakening the best in people. In the end, calmness is not something you master once and keep forever. It is a lifelong companion. Some days it stands beside you effortlessly. Other days you must search for it. But it is always there, waiting for you to return. And every time you choose peace where you once chose anger, every time you choose patience where you once chose reaction, every time you choose understanding where you once chose judgment, you become more of who you truly are. Before we close this final chapter, I want to leave you with the same blessing my grandfather often whispered to me before I faced difficult days. May your heart stay steady even when the world trembles. May your mind stay clear even when the noise is loud. May your soul stay gentle even when life is harsh. And may you carry your inner peace like a lantern that lights the path for others. If you carry even a small piece of this with you, your days will feel lighter. Your relationships will deepen. Your challenges will soften. And your life will open in ways you may not yet imagine. Calmness is not just a path, it is a way of being. And now it is yours.